Hello there, kia ora. Look, I'm going to level with you, okay? I was considering doing some kind of April Fool's Day post for tomorrow. An update saying that I was going to be running in the local body elections as an ACT candidate, which I can clearly get away with because of the party's clear inability to vet candidates properly, from, the president down to the half a dozen people they had to pull out at the last election because ACT weren't in power yet and didn't want to scare away anybody who was thinking of voting for them who actually believe that they weren't at least a toe down the rabbit hole. But honestly, I couldn't do it. Not in a way that was any more ridiculous than what we've actually seen in the past few days from the government. Like Nicola Willis, whose big grand announcement on how making grocery prices fairer by maybe diversifying the supermarket duopoly that has been breathlessly run by media since Friday because Cabinet had signed off on the grand plan was to get more information. We had Chris Bishop on Q&A tell us that there hasn't been a rise in homelessness because of this government's much touted harsher approach to emergency housing, because that's what he'd heard. The minister used anecdotal evidence to back up his claims, which go in the complete opposite direction of actual research done by both Auckland Council, which has said that the number of people sleeping in cars, streets, and parks had risen 53% since September and January. And the Salvation Army's State of the Nation report, which identified tighter emergency housing criteria as a key contributor to the rising number of people who are living homeless on our streets. If your kitchen was on fire and a mate came up to you and said, "Well, I'd heard everything was fine, there's no fire issue," and the fire department came rushing in and said, "Why are you still here? There's a fire happening. Can't you see the flames and the smoke and hear all the alarms going off?" You'd probably be more inclined to believe the fire department because of all the evidence. Unless you're a New Zealand First voter and you replace your mate in this scenario with Winston Peters, who this weekend went on the attack towards the boss of Kiwibank for a post showing that he values diversity in his workplace, which Winston took exception to. Surely the head of the bank should be focusing on the cost of living crisis. This from a Deputy Prime Minister who last week accepted a pointless petition from the J.K. Rowling fan club known as Speak Up for Women, a TERF group who spread hate and disinformation about trans women. This was after his State of the Union address, or nation, I don't know, I think he gets the two confused as well, where he talked about his war on woke, taking the country that he's been Deputy Prime Minister for 5 of the last 8 years back from whoever has it, and dribbling about DEI hires, but also before he decided to really push ahead with the latest cooker rage bait that we're sending $22 billion overseas because of the Paris Climate Agreement. Okay, quick side note, because I do love me a Terry Pratchett style footnote. Part of our 2016 Paris Agreement plan, which has been publicly available online since it was signed almost a decade ago, so therefore not a shock to anyone who can, Google things, they could hunt it down, is that we look at investment in ways of neutralizing our emissions with overseas projects because a sudden and massive overhaul to our energy systems and other industries so that we reach that target that we agreed to would, at the very least, impact our economy in a negative way and give us negative GDP growth. And those overseas offsets are negotiable, but we have a short window for that negotiation left for this round. At the moment, most experts think we can still secure what we need overseas at the cost of just $3 billion over a decade. But the very worst case scenario is the one that a drunk foreign affairs minister might come up with who doesn't believe in man-made climate change and is scared of people looking out for others in a kind and inclusive way. But that one would end up costing us around $23 billion over a decade. And that's according to this detailed report that came from Radio New Zealand, as well as a whole bunch of information from these government websites. Anyway, footnote over. And of course, he's now demanding we leave, and Seymour is flirting with the idea, all because Donald Trump has done so, and their voters are so misinformed about some really basic data that's been available for almost a decade in the public sphere. And of course, his most addle-pated followers lap it up and say things like, "It's about time," and "common sense at last," despite it being easily debunked, fabricated, worst-case scenario catastrophizing from this undisputed expert in catastrophizing scenarios. So, when it came to deciding if I did an April Fool's Day post, I decided, honestly, it was probably best to wait until Winston makes whatever big announcement he's making about the ferries today, which The way things have been going at the moment is going to end up being something like the Poseidon Adventure, and that'll be enough of a joke for all of us. Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you get more updates as we go along. We deal with these guys for the rest of the year.